Thank Hashem that we're able to learn every morning. It's of our learning. We should have the Beis Hamikdash immediately. It should be a panacea. Okay, we're going to start today Mem Aleph Amud Beis. That's 41b, towards the end, like literally the last two lines of 41b. Tana Rabbanan. Tana Nebraisa. Yevamos Daf. Chalitza was performed within the 3 months. Now, remember, they were supposed to wait 3 months after the death of the husband before she does chalitza and gets remarried. Over here, they did chalitza within the 3 months. Well, tzricha lahamtin shleisha chadashim. She can't get remarried until she waits the full 3 months from the death. La'achar gimel. Let's say chalitza was done after the 3 months, which is the correct time. You don't have to wait 3 months from the chalitza. It's good enough. When the sages said that you have to wait 3 months, it's the 3 months from the death of the husband, not from the chalitza. Gemara says, "Maishlami get." What's the difference between a get? After the get is given, the rabbi tells the woman that from 90 days, 91 days from today, she can't get married. So that's not from the writing of the get. That's from the giving of the get. So it says like this. The Rav Amar Mishas Nesina, Shmuel Amar Mishas Ksiva. See, once the get is written, husband and wife are not supposed to be together. Now, if you're trying to ascertain, you're trying to make sure, to clarify that there's no pregnancy from the first husband, so really you only needed to delay the marriage 3 months from the writing of the get, because they couldn't have been together from the writing of the get anyway. So the 3 months should really be from the writing of the get. But nevertheless, by the get, we say no. We do it from the giving of the get, which doesn't have to be on the same day. The get could be given with the messenger on a different day. So why by the get do we wait 3 months from the giving of the get, not from the writing of the get? And by chalitza, we wait 3 months, not from the chalitza, but we wait 3 months from the death of the husband. Yeah, well, it's 100% clear that he didn't make her pregnant after he died. Yeah, pretty much so. Maybe nowadays with technology it could change, but that would be clear. And from the get, we say that it has to be from the giving of the get according to Rav. Shmuel was satisfied with the ksiva, with the writing of the get. Amar Rava, so Rava says like this, he explains this this discrepancy between Rav's opinion by the get and what we're saying about chalitza. He says, Kal v'chaymer, Yisur karisi tarta, Yisur lavle kolshkein. What are you permitting from 3 months from the death of the husband? You're actually permitting yibum. Now, yibum, hey, good morning. Yibum is possibly the sister-in-law. Now, that's a prohibited relation for him, for this brother, for Shimon to marry Reuven's wife, Leah. That could be a prohibition of living with his sister-in-law, as if there would be a child there. If there's no child, then it's a mitzvah of yibum. If there is a child, it's a prohibition. It's a serious prohibition. It's a prohibition of kares. So we're saying that we're allowing him to marry Leah after 3 months, with the assumption that there's no child. And now you're going to tell me that you have to wait 3 months for her to marry someone else, which is just the Isser Lav, the negative prohibition. Notice the serious prohibition you're permitting after 3 months from the death of the husband. The minor prohibition is going to be more strict about, and you're going to make her wait for longer. See, the minor prohibition would come after chalitza. Let's say it wasn't acceptable, that chalitza or something. So we're not going to be strict like that, like kolshkein. So not a kal v'chomer that it should be permissible. What do you need? No, they closed it off. Okay. V'chein shar kol anoshim. We said in the Mishnah that all women that were married, that are now not married for whatever reason, need to wait 3 months before they can get remarried. Okay. Gemara says, Bishlema Yevama. We understand why a Yevama, the woman that's waiting for her brother-in-law, her deceased husband's brother to do Yibam, we understand why he had to wait Kedamran. That was the whole Gemara. It would be a problem if she was pregnant. But why do all other women have to wait 3 months? She got divorced. She wants to get remarried. She found another guy 2 weeks later. Why can't she get married? So Amar Rav Nachman Amar Shmuel Mishum da Amar Kra Liyos L'chol Elikim L'zaracha Acharecha, to be a God for you and for your descendants after you. And what that means is that in order to be a God for you, it needs L'havchen bein Zar Shel Rishon L'Zar Shel Sheni. The Shechina dwells with this clarity on who's a child of who. So we want to make sure that we do everything that the Shechina should be comfortable. And that is to make sure that we know who's the father of this child. And if we would get married, allow her to get married within 3 months, then that would be a problem. It could be a confusion of who's the father, the deceased or the new husband. Masav Rava. Rava has a question. Yeah, from this answer that Rav Nachman gives in the name of Shmuel, there's another version to who's saying it from the Shiltis, Amrav Yehuda Marav. From this answer that we have, it's more like like it's not a halachic issue. It's like more like a ruchnius type of thing. We want the Shechina, and so therefore we've created a halacha in order for the ruchnius of it. We've established when she could get married because we want to have the presence of Hashem in our midst. Masav Rava has a question. Lefikach, there's a statement that says, therefore, ger v'giyaris tzrichen lahamtin gimel chadashim. If a man and his wife that are converting together, they're married already. They have to wait 3 months after the conversion to get remarried. We know who the father is. What are you worried about now? It says, we still want to ascertain one point. I'm sorry. And that is, what point do we want to clarify? That is that the conception of this child came after the conversion or if it came before the conversion. So if you wait 3 months, then you can see that. Why? Because you'll be able to see if she's pregnant. If she was pregnant, then we know if she's allowed to convert while she's pregnant, that's not a problem. And the child gets converted inside her. Yeah, that's another Gemara, that the child doesn't need another conversion. She goes to the mikveh with the child in her, the child gets, the tefillah goes for the child as well. But the conception was from the father. So it's a conversion on the child. Or we say that she converted and then she got pregnant after the conversion, and the child is a regular Jewish child, not a convert. Yeah. So we want to clarify that. Okay, so that's why we make them wait also 3 months. Rava Amar Gzeir Sham Yisas Achaisim Miyaviv. Rava himself says, Rava that asked the question, he has another reason. Let's go through each one. He has a few points here.
If the couple comes in and they have a child after they've converted, the child is not considered a convert.
Right.
He's born Jewish.
Yeah.
If he was conceived before they married, he's considered a convert.
He's conceived before, and she went to the mikveh while she's pregnant. So then the child has one halacha that's relevant. And that is that if it's a girl, she's not supposed to marry a Kohen because she's a convert. Now, however, if she did end up marrying a Kohen, I don't know how that came about, but she did. She would not need to get divorced because she was converted before the birth. Yeah, so there is a leniency there to make her like she's like somewhere in the middle. Yeah, sometimes in the Bezdin, people come in, they say, we want to do the conversion right away because she's pregnant and we want her for the child to have the bris and the thing and the baby and whatever, all of this. So it's not really relevant. If it's a girl, so she's not allowed to marry a Kohen anyway. And if it's a boy, it doesn't matter if the conversion is done before or after. You don't have to put that pressure on yourself. Or, okay. Rava's comment is Gezer Shem Yisas Achaisim Yaviv. What happened is this lady is married first to Reuven, then she's married to some other fellow, Shimon, let's say, not related, just the two names that we. So Reuven divorced her or passed away, and she got remarried. She marries this other fellow, Shimon. Now, 7 months later, after the marriage, she has a child. It's a big simcha. Everyone's happy. This new couple just had a child. Turns out that this was really a pregnancy from the first husband. She didn't wait the full 3 months. Okay, so there's a problem now because this Reuven had another family, either before or after, whether he died or divorced, whatever, or he had a previous family from another wife. Now, that family, there was a girl there. Now, this child that's born decides to marry he's a son of Shimon. He's nothing to do with Reuven. So he thinks that he's not related. He's going to end up marrying his sister from his father. Another case. V'yibem eishes achiv me'imai. If we don't do the waiting of the 3 months, so then that's what could come out. Rav is saying it's not because you want to be able to know so that the Shekhinah should be here and all of this. We have real halachic problems that are going to come out from this, that it's much stronger deterrent than the answer that Rav Nachman gave. Another thing is that let's say Shimon has another child together with this woman. Okay. So we think this child was the first one. Then there's another child. That child grows up, gets married, doesn't have children, and passes away. So the first child, that was the one that was born 7 months afterwards, now wants to do Yibam. So he marries the wife of the second child. I can't use Reuven and Shimon anymore because those were the parents. So he thinks he's the child of Shimon. So he thinks it's his father's son. He thinks they're brothers from mother and father. Turns out they're only brothers from the mother, because he's really a child of Reuven. So when he does Yibum, he's doing Yibum on his maternal brother, not on his paternal brother. And that's prohibited. Yibum is only if it's from the father, brothers from the father. It could be from the father and the mother, but it can't be only from the mother. Another problem. The Yotzias Imay Lashuk. What's going to happen is, let's say Shimon passes away. Now, we say the mother doesn't need to do Yibum. Why? Because she has a child from Shimon. Turns out that really this child was from Reuven. And the fact that she has a child doesn't take away Yibum. It's that Shimon doesn't have a child. So Shimon's brother happens to be Levi, coincidentally, because Reuven was not. Shimon's brother really should be doing Yibum. And we're saying that we're not going to do Yibum because there's a child here. Now, who's the child really? It was from Reuven. And really Yibum should be performed. Okay. The Yifteres Yevamti Lashuk. We have another issue. What happened was, let's say Reuven had another child, a boy. The boy got married, from previous marriage. The boy gets married, and he passed away without children. Now, is there a brother here to do Yibum? We say no, because we think that this child was born into the family of Shimon, the new child, because the mother got married within 3 months. We think it's Shimon's child. We don't even know about a brother. So we're going to allow his real brother just to get married, saying that there's no brother. There's no brother to do Yibum. So the wife, not the brother to get married, the wife, the widow of his real brother is going to get married without Yibum, even though there is a brother that exists. Okay, so Rava has a very strong concern about not waiting 3 months from in between one marriage and another. Massive Rav Chananya has a question. We have a whole bunch of halachas that when Yibum is allowed to be performed and which type of women is allowed to marry. All of those concerns have to do with arayas, with erva, with marriages. But when it comes to this halacha here of waiting the 3 months, that's because we need to be, we're concerned about the child. If Rav is correct, that the concern about the child is also about arayas, that maybe you're going to marry the wrong person, and the sister and the mother is the thing, and the brothers, the Yibam, and all of those issues that Rava just brought up. The whole story is the same. What are the halachas of who can do Yibam on the mother? Has to do with arayas, has to do with unacceptable marriages. And the same thing is if they doesn't wait 3 months, it has to do with unacceptable marriages for the child or for the mother or for whatever. The Gemara answers, and others, the question that he's posing is that why are you dividing it into different reasons? It's all the same reason. It's all because of unacceptable marriages. The Gemara says, "Haimishim takanas vlad lifka behu erva." You're right. It is because of unacceptable marriages, but it's unacceptable marriages on the child. So other ones were unacceptable marriages on the mother. This is a takanas vlad. It's protecting the child from having a marriage that would not be acceptable. Okay. Now the Gemara is going to ask, why does it really need to be 3 months? is there any way of getting around the 3 months by waiting 2 months, by waiting 1 month, by waiting 2.5 months? Like, what's the worst it could be? We're going to look at some examples and say, well, by process of elimination, whose child is it? And we can figure out, like, well, if it was this age, then it wouldn't have survived, and that, all of that stuff. So Bishlai Matamtin Beis Chadashim Betinase Loy. I get why you can't wait 2 months and then get married. Why? This would be mamish a child, mamish the doubt, because the child is going to be born after 7 months from the new marriage. Ibar Tisha Lakami, Ibar Shiva Labasra. Maybe it was from the last relations of the first husband, 9 months earlier. Maybe it's from the first relations with the new husband, 7 months earlier. That would be the clear doubt where we don't know who the child is. But why doesn't she just wait 1 month and then get married? Bila Shiva Yalda, if she gives birth 7 months later, so Haibar Shiva Labasru, then of course it's going to be the new husband. Why? Because there's 2 types of births. There's a 9 month and a 7 month. The 2 types of pregnancies. So this is obviously a 7 month pregnancy. Yeah, for some reason the Gemara is ignoring the fact that she could have been pregnant a month before the other fellow passed away or divorced her. The Gemara is thinking that, she only becomes pregnant at the very end, at the last relations before. And if it would have been 8 months, 8 months doesn't survive. It's either 7 or 9. Rashi's in a later Rashi says that the reason why the Gemara doesn't say that maybe she was pregnant a month earlier is because we have another answer. I mean, we would have went into that, but we have another answer, so we just ignore that fact. If she has a child not after 7 months, after 8 months, then of course it's going to be it's going to be the 9th month from the first husband. Why? Because she only waited 1 month. So she gave birth after 8 months, which is a total of 9 months. So it's the child of the first husband. So we figured it out. Gemara says, you know what? It's very possible that she gives birth after 8 months. It's really the second husband's child. Why? Maybe she didn't get pregnant from the first relation. She got pregnant a month later. And it's a 7 month child, 7 month pregnancy. And she gave birth after the 8 months of marriage, 1 month in. Right? Let her wait 2.5 months. If she gives birth after 7 months, so it's 7 months from the new husband. If she gives birth after 6.5 months, so then obviously it's from the first husband. Because if it would be from the second husband, you can't have a pregnancy before 7 months, that she gives birth under 7 months. The Gemara says no. Even if she would have given birth at 6.5 months, we could say that it comes from the second husband. How did she give birth so early? Even according to the opinion that holds that it needs to be a full-term child, there's a machlekes. If it needs to be full term for it to survive, that's only if it's a 9 month pregnancy. But if it's a 7 month pregnancy, then everyone holds it doesn't need to be full term. It says by Shmuel, when Chana gave birth, it was after seasons and days. It has the expression over there, it's tkufas, seasons. How long is the season? 3 months. It's 4 seasons. So Tkufais would be 6 months. And Yamim, what's the minimal amount of days that you could have? It's 2, because it's a plural of days. So one would be a day, and days is 2. So we're talking about 6 months and 2 days. Miyat kufetz beis, miyat yamim beis. Okay. The Gemara asks a new question. V'tamtin mashu v'tinasi v'chimal shleish chadashim livdika. Let her just wait a mashu, a week, 2 weeks, and then let her get remarried. And at exactly 3 months from the death, you should examine her to see if she's pregnant. Now, the examination, I think, was done on her breasts. That's what Rashi says. They would examine her to see if she's pregnant. Something must switch. So, Amar Rav Safra says, she's a married woman. We're not going to send in people to examine a married woman. It's not nice for her husband to go through that procedure. Umar says, we have another way of examining. We can examine that her posture changes when she's pregnant. And it makes a difference in the way she leaves her footprints on the floor. So what we'll do is we'll put soft sand, we'll let her walk, and we'll see how the impression is on the sand. We'll see if she's pregnant or not. We can't trust that sort of examination, because she wants the child to be from the new husband, because she wants him to get that inheritance. So she's going to cover up the way she walks. She's going to walk differently, so that they'll think that she's not pregnant. So that way, when she actually is pregnant, she maybe knows already, the pregnancy will be from the second husband, and that way the child will inherit the second husband. Okay. The Gemara says, the real question, this is the big question. The Gemara asks, if she's pregnant already, why do you have to wait 3 months for her to get married? We said that it doesn't matter. She's obviously pregnant from the first husband. Why do you have to wait 3 months now? Allah Tanya, why was it taught in a brisa? Probably a Mishnah, no? No, we're quoting the brisa because this was a very strict opinion here. Yeah, the brisa says, person's not allowed to marry a pregnant woman from someone else, or even a nursing woman from someone else. And if he does marry her, he has to divorce her. He's never allowed to marry her again, never allowed to remarry her, even if he waits the amount of time. Okay, so we're asking, why should he have to wait? We know the child. If the whole thing is to know who the father is, well, we clearly know who the father is. The Gemara says, we're afraid that the second husband is going to make her pregnant. The new pregnancy, I don't know if this is possible today, but the new pregnancy would squash the first fetus, and the child would become a sandal. Sandal, I think, is like a fish, or this means like no form, sort of. It would squish it, so it comes out without a form without the face, the form of a face or a body. Ihachi, the Gemara says, so 1 second. That's what you're concerned about? That the new husband is going to make her pregnant? Let's say he's married. They have to separate every time she's pregnant because maybe the new she's going to get pregnant again, and it's going to ruin the first fetus. Yachi dideinami. How do we allow them to stay married if they're married already and she's pregnant? The Gemara says, well, you have 2 options there. Either there's an opinion about a child, marrying a child. Is it we mentioned this once before. Can you marry a young girl? If she gets pregnant, it could be harmful to her. So there were two opinions there. One opinion was that you have to use a contraceptive, a moich, which is something that would take out the sperm. It would stop it from entering into the uterus. Or so then b'moich. Or you can take the other approach that Hashem will, the heaven will have compassion on her, and she'll only get pregnant if she's meant to get pregnant. And so that's what we'll do over here as well. If he's married and she's pregnant, we'll let them remain together because min hashamayim yirachmu. Hashem will control what's happening. We'll have compassion on the wife. So the Gemara says, 1 second. Hachanami. So why not by us? You're talking about that she was married once. Now she's divorced. And now there's a new husband. And you're saying that you're concerned that if the new husband, that if she's pregnant, the new husband's going to make her pregnant again. Do the same thing. However you do it when she's married, however you resolve that issue, that maybe that's going to harm the fetus, so you'll do the same thing when she's getting remarried to make sure it doesn't harm the fetus. Rather, what we're concerned of is that when he's having relations with her, he may apply too much pressure to her and kill the child. The Gemara says, well, if that's a real concern, so why aren't you concerned about that when it's his wife, not the new wife? When it's his wife the whole time, why aren't you concerned that he's going to squish during relations? He's going to squish the fetus. Well, he says, it's his own child. He's going to be more careful. When he's having relations, he won't squish the fetus. The Gemara says, no. Talking about a matter of life and death. Even if it's not his child, he's still going to be concerned about that. That's what the Gemara rejects that outright. He's not going to kill the child. Just because it wasn't his child. Ella, rather, the Gemara says, a regular pregnant woman is expecting to nurse the child afterwards. The problem is, maybe when she's going to get pregnant from the new husband, it's going to spoil the milk. And it's going to dry up. And then the child is not going to have what to be fed. Gemara says, Yachidi Deinami. So then why do we let her stay married when she's married? Maybe the milk will dry up. She'll become pregnant. The milk will dry up. I'm right now on Mem Beis, Amud Beis, 42b on the top. If it's his own child, then the same problem. It says, no, Didei Mimas Misa Lei. He'll feed her or him. She'll feed him. Mimas Misa Lei. Lei means him or it. She will feed him, the baby, eggs and milk instead of the mother's milk. Gemara says, well, if you have a solution, so then what are you worried about her getting married? You have a solution anyway. He could, the new husband can also give eggs and milk. The Gemara says, Layav Labal. The husband says, I don't have eggs and milk for your baby from the previous husband. I'm not supporting those children. Gemara says, well, with Beini Liyarshim. So let her go to the brother's family and collect the money, saying, I have a child that needs support, child support from the ex or from the deceased. Amar Abaye Ishabusha Lavi Lebezdin. A woman is ashamed to come to court to claim. And so, Vahiregas Espina, her child is going to end up dying. It doesn't mean she's going to kill the child. It means, Rashi says, that means out of not having enough food, the child's going to die. She'll push it off. She'll say, maybe he'll survive. Maybe he'll survive on a little bit less. And that we don't want. So therefore, we don't allow her to get married until the 2 years are up. Yeah, until she's finished nursing. Yeah, if we need to ascertain if she's pregnant, that was a 3 months thing. She's not pregnant, but if she is pregnant, then it's even more. Then it's 2 years. Okay. And we say achas besulis v'achas beulis, whether she's a virgin or whether she's already been married, or she's not a virgin, whether she's divorced, whether she's a widow, whether it was from the marriage, whether it was from the betrothal, she has to wait 3 months. The Gemara says, "Haini besulis v'haini arusis." How is this girl a basula, a virgin, if she was already married? It must be that's talking about that she was just betrothed, and she could be a virgin. Haini abulas v'haini nesuas. How is she not a basula? Because she was married, and so that's the same one. So the Gemara is asking, why are you repeating the same woman under different names? This one you call her a virgin. Then the next one you say she's only betrothed. The next one you say she's not a virgin. Then you say she's married. So it's the same person. The Gemara says, Rabbi Yehuda explains what the Mishnah means is exactly what you're saying. Achas besulis v'achas besulis shenesar malei sheneskarshu. Whether it was a virgin or not a virgin, that was widowed or divorced. Bein minayersin, bein minasun. And then it explains, how did that come about? How was she divorced? Well, maybe she was only betrothed, or whether she was married. And it's explaining what the case was before. So you're right. The observation was correct, that it's the same woman, but the Gemara is explaining, the Gemara is saying that the Mishnah was explaining how that case came about. Rabbi Lazar loy al beis midrasha. Rabbi Lazar did not come to the beis medrash one night. So Ashkechei Rabasi finds Rabasi. Amar le, he says to Rabasi, "My Amar Rabbanan beis midrasha." Tell me what I missed. What was the conversation? Rabbi Lazar is Rabbi Lazar ben Pedas. Yeah. Who did you think it was? No. Rabbi Lazar ben Shmuel would be a Tana, and he wouldn't be finding Rabasi. Rabasi.
Which Rabbi?
No, it's going to be, Rabbi Yehuda is going to come up, and Rabbi Yossi is going to come up, but they're talking
It's
about.
not the Rabbi Yehuda student of Rabbi Akiva. It's a different.
1 second. Rabbi Lazar it didn't come to the beis medrash, so he finds Rabasi. You have to find now a Rabbi Lazar that can have a conversation with Rabasi. So that's going to be the Amarayim period. Now, what did they discuss in the beis medrash? They discussed something that was much earlier. What did they? He says, "My Amar Rabban beis midrash." What was the discussion? Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan made a statement last night or yesterday. He says, "Halacha k'Rabbi Yossi." Says the halacha is like Rabbi Yossi. Now Rashi points out that what he means is the halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda. And Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Yehuda agreed to just about everything. So it's the same idea that if she wasn't married yet, the woman, and now she's divorced, she was only betrothed, now she's divorced, so now she can get fully married. She doesn't have to wait 3 months. If she was fully married before, now she can get betrothed. Except in Yehuda, that area where we didn't trust what took place during the betrothal and all of that. But we're going to accept that view. Not the strict view of the Tanakama that if there's any sort of marriage, any betrothal or anything, they have to wait 3 months no matter what. Rabbi Yochanan says, Allah is like Rabbi Yehuda, like the Allah is like Rabbi Yossi. He says, Machlal, the Yechidai Palagala. Why do you say the Allah is like Rabbi Yossi? It must be that the Tanakama, we always assume the Tanakama is the majority opinion. It must be that the Tanakama is only an individual. Tanakama is the first opinion that's mentioned in the Mishnah, was a strict opinion. We thought that that's what everyone says. Turns out, if the halacha is like Rabbi Yossi, it's probably because Rabbi Yossi was only arguing with one individual. And when Rabbi Yossi argues with an individual, the halacha is like Rabbi Yossi. Why? It says, Nimuka Yimai. his logic was always correct. He always had a good reason. Gemara says, you're right. It was only an individual. Bahatanya, and we actually have a brisa that says that. Let's say there was a woman. She was always running to her father's house. She would not hang out in her husband's house. I don't know what was going on. We can make up a whole novel to explain that. Or there was a fight. She was not together with her husband. They were basically separated. She would not have relations with her husband. Or the husband was in prison. The husband was aged, was an old man, or he was sick. Maybe she was sick. Another example. She just had a miscarriage after her husband passed away. Or maybe she was barren. Her uterus was removed. Or she was older, or she was very young, or she was an islandess. She was someone that was never developed enough to have children. Or maybe she was taking a potion that she doesn't get pregnant. Nevertheless, Reb Meir says for the new husband, she has to wait 3 months before she can get remarried. We don't look at all of those reasons and say, well, she wasn't pregnant anyway. We say that she has to wait. That's the opinion of who? Reb Meir. Reb Yehuda says that she can get married immediately. And that's the opinion of Rabbi Yossi as well. The Gra over here changes it to Rabbi Yossi. Then he goes back and he explains what Rashi said before, that when Rabbi Yochanan says that Allah is like Rabbi Yossi, he really means to say that Allah is like Rabbi Yehuda. The Gra says, no, he means to say that Allah is like Rabbi Yossi because the Brisa says Rabbi Yossi. Okay.
So the Tanakam is Reb Meir?
Tanakam is Reb Meir. And it's only Reb Meir. It's not Reb Meir as a general opinion. It's an individual Reb Meir. Amar Reb Chia bar Abba Chazer by Reb Yochanan. Reb Chia bar Abba says that what Reb Asi told Reb Elazar, that Reb Yochanan paskin, that the halacha is like Reb Yossi, he actually retracted. Reb Chia bar Abba is a great student of Reb Yochanan. He reviewed all the teachings of Reb Yochanan every 30 days. Amar Reb Yosef, if Reb Yochanan retracted, we must nisan the karma haderbei. It was the Mishnah from the Kerem b'Yavne. Kerem is the vineyard in Yavne. Now, in Yavne, that was where the yeshiva was. And they sat in a circle. Now, Rabbi Yochanan wasn't in Kerem b'Yavne. There was a Mishnah that was taught in Kerem b'Yavne. Rabbi Yochanan wasn't there. The Tanya, it was taught in a Brisa. A Brisa was taught there. Amar Rabbi Shmuel ben Aishor Rabbi Yochanan ben Breika. Rabbi Shmuel, the son of Rabbi Yochanan ben Breika, said, Shemati mi pi chachamim beKerem b'Yavne. I heard a teaching from the sages in Kerem b'Yavne. Kulam tzrichen lahamtin shleisha chadashim. Every woman needs to wait 3 months. It doesn't matter what her scenario was, what her situation was, what the conditions were, what was going on. Aha. So because there was a statement from Rabbi Shmuel ben Aishor Rabbi Yochanan ben Breika in Kerem b'Yavne, so therefore Rabbi Yochanan retracted from what he said, that the Allah is like Rabbi Yehuda, or the Allah is like Rabbi Yossi. That it's not every woman. There's a lot of exceptions. Amalei Rabbi Yirmiyah le Rabbi Zrika. Rabbi Yirmiyah tells to Rabbi Zrika, Ki ailas l'kamed Rabavo, when you go in front of Rabavo, Ramilei, ask him the following question. Mi amar Rabbi Yochanan halacha Rabbi Yossi. Does Rabbi Yochanan really say that the halacha is like Rabbi Yossi? Amar Rabbi Yochanan halacha kistam mishnah. But Rabbi Yochanan says the halacha is like a stam. Stam means anonymous. The halacha is like the anonymous opinion in the Mishnah. Utanan, in our Mishnah says, Kol anashim la'yinasav la'yisarsu ad shi'alem shleish chodashim achas psulis v'achas bulayis. All women need to wait 3 months. How could Rabbi Yochanan make these two statements? Halacha is like the anonymous, and the halacha is like Rabbi Yossi. You can't have them both. Yeah, it's a problem. Amalei, Sir Bavo says, or maybe Rab Zrika says, I don't know. What does it say in English? Zrika came to Rabavo. Yeah, okay. So Rab Zrika brought the message from Rabbi Yirmiyah, and Rabavo responds, the Ramalacha lechash lekimchi. The fellow that asked you this question does not even know what's going on with his own flour. That means he didn't clarify his own question. Stam b'yachakach machlekesi. That's not a real stam. That's not an anonymous Mishnah. That's an anonymous Mishnah that has a machlekes afterwards. Ein halacha kestam. If there's a machlekes, if there's a view that argues on that, then we don't go like that stam. If there's a dissenting view after the anonymous view, then we say that you don't follow the anonymous. Why did that view show up? That view is showing up to tell me that you don't follow. It's not so simple. Don't follow that earlier view that we mentioned. Rav Papa says, and some say Rabbi Yochanan says, machlekes v'achakach stam, halacha kestam. If there's a machlekes and afterwards there's a stam, then we'll go like the stam. Why? What we're saying is, remember we told you before that there's a machlekes? Don't worry about the machlekes. Let me tell you now what the halacha is. We give you the stam. However, stam b'yachkach machlekes. But if we say an anonymous opinion, then afterwards we tell you it's a machlekes, then ein halacha kestam. We're not going to go like a stam. Why? Because then we're telling you that what we told you before, it's actually not so simple. It's more complex. There's another opinion there. Let's see, we'll get to the next page, even though it's the beginning of a new piece. Mistamach v'azol Rabavo akaspei de Rab Nachum. Shamei. Rabavo was leaning on the shoulder of Rab Nachum, his servant, his assistant. Mankit v'azol. While they're going, he's collecting halachas from him. He's asking him questions. He's collecting halachas from him. He asks Rab Nachum asks Rabavo these questions. If there's a machlekes in the Mishnah, two opinions, but then the Mishnah gives you just one opinion anonymously. Amalei halacha kestam. The halacha is like the anonymous view that was said afterwards. Stam yachakach machlekes mai. Let's say there was anonymous view and there's machlekes. What's the din? Amalei ein halacha kestam. He says that's not the halacha because we made it more complex afterwards. Stama de masnisin umachlekes bebraisa. That's interesting. The Mishnah has a stam, but the Braisa tells me that it's more complex. There's a machlekes. Mai. Amalei halacha kestam. So we follow the Mishnah. What about this? Machlekes b'masnisin v'stama bebraisa. Let's say the Mishnah is complex, has two opinions, but the stam is in the Braisa. What's the din then? Amrlei. How did the Braisa get a stam? Amrlei v'chi Rebbe leishana Reb Chia minayin lei. Says we're going to accept what it says in the Braisa, because if Rebbe didn't teach it, how did Reb Chia get that stam Mishnah, the stam Braisa? It must be that he heard it from Rebbe. Okay, let me leave. He's about to ask him a question that's going to disprove this last statement, but let's leave it right here. Yeah. Tomorrow's Yom Tov, and can we learn at 9? 9, yeah.